Hey, this is a short little video on how to disassemble a hub and replace a spindle on a 1997 Land Cruiser. First things first, you want to make sure everything is laid out beforehand, get all your parts together.
Gasket.
Make sure that you have a clean and tidy workspace, as it will make the job go much easier. Once the truck's in the air, remove your lugs. Remove the tire and place to the side of your workspace. Take your channel lock pliers and pull off the hub seal. Simply remove the circlip on the axle with a pair of circlip pliers.
Gosh, I hate this stupid thing.
Disassemble your front caliper by removing the bolts, the clips. It's important to remember to only use the highest quality tools in a job like this. Take your high quality channel lock pliers, push your pistons in, and start removing the bolts that hold the caliper on. Remember, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. With your caliper removed, make sure to secure it up and out of the way so there's no stress on the line, as seen clearly here. Remove the 6 bolts holding the flange to the hub. Use a brass punch to gently tap on the bolts to remove the cone washers. Alternatively, you can use a hammer and the Clarkson technique to loosen the cone washers, which you may find to be slightly more effective. Once the flange is removed, set it aside. Carefully flatten out the star washer tabs that have been folded over the retaining nut to keep it in place. Remove the retaining nut with the special enormous socket tool. Remove the star nut from off the spindle shaft and place in the appropriate pile. Use the special large socket dealie to remove the preload setting nut. Remove the hub from the spindle, and the thrust washer and outer bearing will come off easily.
Let's get you out of here. Whoop.
Inspect the spindle shaft for gooiness. Next, remove the 8 bolts that hold the spindle shaft and dust cover seal to the trunnion.
Well, there's really only one orientation that works.
Carefully place the dust cover aside. Use a brass punch to gently encourage the spindle to loosen, or, if necessary, use the appropriate Clarkson technique. You remembered, of course, before removing the spindle that you need to remove your ABS sensor on top of the trunnion. Inside the trunnion is a gooey mess, so it's important to be able to collect the grease in a specialized container made specifically for the job. Carefully pull the axle shaft and burr field from the axle, being very careful not to damage the inner axle seal as you do so. Set the burr field and axle shaft aside and finish cleaning out the trunnion. Remove the gasket on the trunnion for the spindle. Carefully remove as much as you can and scrape off whatever you can't get, making sure not to nick the surface. Carefully punch out the bearing and seal
The old seal
from the back of the hub. Then, using a punch, find the 4 marks inside the hub that are recessed and use a punch to carefully drive out the old race. Make sure to use a brass punch and not a steel punch, as it may nick the surface.
Oh, balls.
Repeat for the other side. Clean the inside of the hub and brake disc with brake cleaner. Test fit the new bearings on the new spindle to make sure that they'll go in. They should be snug, but should slide right onto the shaft without difficulty. Ah, perfect fit. Use your bearing race driver kit to carefully drive the new races into the back of the hub. When driving into the back of the hub, remember to place the hub on a soft wooden surface as to not damage the bolts. And repeat for the front. Remember, hydration is important. Fill the trunnion with a high-quality NGI-L No. 2 grease, preferably molybdenum disulfide or EP grease. Fit the axle shaft back into the trunnion and pack the trunnion and axle shaft with grease. Check that the new gasket fits as it should.
Well, that's not right.
And with your new gasket on the dust cover seal, put it on the dust cover in the orientation that you clearly remember taking it off from. Printing out reference material ahead of time is a great way to make sure that you have what you need at hand, and is a great time saver. Torque the 8 bolts, holding the dust cover on, as well as the spindle.
To be the right way to do it.
Use your torque wrench to torque the bolts to spec.
Okay. New spindle activated. Okay, installation.
Pack your new wheel bearings in a manner clearly shown here. With the new inner bearing in, carefully install the new seal on the inside of the hub. Nice. Now pack the outside bearing as clearly shown here. Next, slide the hub onto the new spindle, carefully encouraging the outer bearing to fit on to the shaft. Put the thrust washer back on with the groove on the inside and keyed into the slot, and use the special oversized socket dealie to tighten the preload adjusting nut. You'll of course have your reference material at hand to help you remember the proper torque setting for preloading the adjustment in the bearing. Once you've set a high torque, rotate the hub, set again at a high torque, and then loosen and set your torque using the giant hub nut dealie to a very low and specific torque setting. Install the new star nut between the preload nut and the set nut and torque the set nut to spec. Then bend over the tabs of the star nut to hold your setting in place. Install the drive flange onto the hub with a new gasket installed. Put the cone washers in and torque to spec. Reference your nearby printed out reference sheet for torque specs if required. Reinstall the brake caliper, and congratulations, your installation is probably complete. Don't forget to pack the hub with grease on the inside between the two bearing races. This step is critical and would require you to undo all of your work if you forgot it.
Oh, balls. Oh well.